What's going on, y'all? I am Franklin Cooper.
Tristan Jones.
Anthony Barber.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement. Thank y'all so much, man, for joining us this Saturday afternoon at 5 p.m. Central Time. We are doing a Super Bowl preview of today's show. We know we're on the Super Bowl next Sunday, but we want to talk about all the updates leading up to the big game, predictions about who's going to win the game, and the matchups, man. So let's get it started, man. Tristan, man, you like myself are very excited about this game coming up, man. It'll be the third Super Bowl in 4 years for the Kansas City Chiefs. We know that they had a somewhat of a long road back after the letdown last year in the AC Championship game, losing both their tackles in Super Bowl 55 as well against Tampa Bay Bucks. What do you expect, man, from the Chiefs going to this game as far as health? Because I know we lost 3 receivers last Sunday. We lost our number 1 corner as well. Some guys are banged up, man. So it's kind of hard to estimate what they're going to do. But in your best guess, man, who do you think plays? Who do you think doesn't play?
Just from paying attention to the reports, McCole Hardman probably is not going to play. So that just means everybody else in the receiving core after Kelsey just kind of gets bumped up as far as potential touches. You should see more MVS. Hopefully he can continue the strong play that he's had the last few weeks. So yeah, I think everybody else will play. Obviously the big joker here is what percentage is Patrick Mahomes going to be at? I would estimate he was probably at around 60% last Sunday. I think by the time we get to game time, he's probably at most 80%, 85%. And we'll see if that's good enough.
Anthony, what are your thoughts about the Kansas City's the Chiefs health going to next Sunday?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest question marks is going into last week, it was how healthy is Patrick Mahomes, but it's like after that game and all of the receivers that went down, it's like who's going to be ready to play and what percentage are they going to be at health wise, and can they be effective at that percentage? I haven't really seen a lot of the reports about who's healthy and who's not, or how bad certain injuries are. Of course, the biggest question mark is, and the biggest factor is whether or not where Patrick Mahomes is going to be, because he got past Cincinnati, but that defensive line that he's going to go up against, he got to be able to move around a little bit more than he was able to last week. So I think that's the biggest question as far as health-wise for Kansas City is how healthy is Patrick Mahomes? Is he going to be 85%? We all know he's not going to be 100% with a high ankle sprain, 2 weeks or whatnot after playing a game. But is he going to be at least at 85% where you're going to get most of how great he is? And then the receivers, are they going to be able to have the guys they trust to make plays? So that's the biggest issue as far as health wise I see for Kansas City.
You're on mute.
Muted.
You're on mute, Coop.
You're muted, Frank.
Sorry, I do that all the time. I don't know why I do that all the time. No, I was saying that not just the Chiefs as well, but I know the Eagles are coming in with some injury issues too. Jalen Hurts has a shoulder injury on his thrown shoulder. That's been an issue with him the last 3 weeks or last 4 weeks now, coming to the playoffs. I know Lane Johnson, who's one of the best tackles in football, he's coming in with some issues as well. How do you guys? I'll start Anthony first. How do you guys view their injury issues as a team, and do you think those issues will play a role into next Sunday's game?
I mean, injuries always play a role. I think that Philadelphia's injury concerns are less than Kansas City's, where I feel like even with Jalen Hurts has not played well the first 2 games of the playoffs, and they've still won one, actually both pretty much going away. So it shows that he doesn't have to play at an elite level for them to win. So even if he's not 100%, they can get by without him being without him being 100%, without him being at the top of his game. Of course, the offensive line, like you said, Lane Johnson, that's always a question with him in his advanced age. Like, is Lane Johnson going to be healthy? Kansas City's defensive line, is Chris Jones. So as long as their interior is healthy, that's who they really have to worry about. I don't think, of course you would rather have Lane Johnson, but if he's not there, or he's not healthy enough to be 100% effective, it's not as bad as it could be if they were going against an elite edge, somebody of Chris Jones caliber on the outside. It could come into play if they spot use Chris Jones on the outside like they did against Cincinnati in crucial situations where they got them so used to him coming up the middle and being able to double team, and then you lose track of him when they put him on the outside and he's wrecking shop. But I think they can get by with their injuries a lot easier than Kansas City can.
T, what about you?
I mean, it's I haven't looked at the Eagles injury report at all, but just kind of seconding with on Jalen Hurts on his shoulder. Say he did not throw the ball well since he's been back, honestly. So we'll just see how effective he is, because it's really important, because that offense is built around his ability to both run and throw. I know he's not a great runner, but like, it'll be easier for the Chiefs to sit on, Hurts as far as a runner if there's not the same threat of the pass. So he's going to have to come out. He's going to have to make some tight throws, some tight seam throws. I'm sure Spagnuolo is going to test them deep. Some one-on-ones and outside early, probably a few times, just to kind of see if he can make those throws. But his shoulder is pretty much the key to the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. I also think as well, RPO is a big part of their offense. It is their offense. And I think I said this last week as well. I was surprised how the QB sneak they ran against the Niners last week in that game, given that he's not fully healthy. It's gonna be a big role. And if you're the Chiefs with your D line, with the size you have with your D line, you're gonna have to be very disciplined. Because if I'm Spagnuolo, what I want Jalen to beat me deep or intermediate. I want to take away the run game and keep the ends out wide and really man the edges and make him make plays downfield. Because once that running game gets popping, against 5-6 yards a pop, it all of a sudden 2nd and 4, and you don't know what's coming. And 3rd and short, this team is pretty much guaranteed to get a first down. So if you can minimize the run game, instead of getting on 5-6 yards a pop, you're giving up 3 yards a pop. All of a sudden, you get in 2nd and 3rd long situations. You're putting Jalen in a situation to make plays downfield with his arm. Now, if they do that, then it's going to be a high-scoring game. Another point I want to get to as well. The Eagles' defense is very highly touted. I get it. 70 sacks during the regular season. They had a bunch of blowouts against a lot of inferior opponents. And as a good team, your job is to blow out your inferior opponent. And they had a very easy schedule going into the season. Out of the 17 games they played, in my opinion, they only played 2 quality quarterbacks, and 3, but 1 wasn't playing well at that time. And they played Trevor Lawrence in week 4. They won that game by 8. And then they played Jared Goff, and that was 30-35 game, and Aaron Rodgers in week 12, which was a 40-33 type game. They haven't played anything like Pat Mahomes. They haven't played anything in the likes of Joe Burrow or Josh Allen before the UCL injury. So my question is, how vaunted and legit is that defense playing against a quarterback of the ilk of Pat Mahomes, who's probably the best of his generation thus far?
I think the key to their defense is that defensive line. Without Patrick Mahomes, so I question like how healthy is he? Because if he's able to move and escape the pass rush, then what he's able to do and what him and Travis Kelce is able to do on the move, adjusting and going off script could be very dangerous. But if he's trapped in that pocket with their D line, then that shifts the way the game goes. So that was why Patrick Mahomes' ability, even though he was very good against Cincinnati, against this defensive line is how much can he move, because they're going to get pressure. So he has to be able to escape that pressure. And then if their corners can hold up just another half second, another second longer, then that creates problems for Kansas City's offense. If he can move, even if he's not Patrick Mahomes running for first downs and as long as he can escape and extend plays enough, then you get Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, yeah, the Eagles defense is like you said, highly touted, but you also have to look at what Patrick Mahomes has done to number one defenses. It doesn't matter. Like, as long as he's healthy, it kind of doesn't matter what the defense is doing or who the defense is or how good they've been. He's going to put up 30. Like, it's just what it is. And so last week he didn't put up 30, but again, a lot of that has to do with his health and what he's able to do off script and how much of Mahomes can Mahomes be.
Tristan?
I mean, again, I agree. Like, ultimately, I think I understand why most people most people I've seen, at least in Vegas to a small degree, is taking the Eagles as the better team. I get that. Like, obviously, this injury factor, Eagles' record over the course of the season. Although I would, point out the weaker conference, but still, they were the more consistent team from week one all the way to the end. But again, if the Chiefs play well, if the Chiefs play good, they're going to win. If they play really well, it's going to be a double-digit, multi-touchdown game. Like, that's just what it is. It's just the ceiling for the Chiefs is a lot higher than the Eagles. And when the playoffs come, the thing I always look for when you're looking at teams, especially two teams that on the paper may seem like really equal, is like, who has an extra gear, right? Who can go from steady standard football to like this and like in a blink of an eye when they need to. And we've seen the Chiefs in the playoffs as well as the regular season, of course, hit an extra gear that other teams just simply don't have. Like, the Texans are the witnesses number one. Like, they can flip a switch really quickly and like hit a mode that the Eagles just simply have not hit. I really want to go back and take a look at last year's game when the Chiefs beat the Eagles and just kind of see the similarities between rosters and schemes and stuff like that. But again, the thing I'm banking on as a Chiefs fan is if the Eagles just play, if the Chiefs play a complete game on both sides, as well as special teams, they should win this. Like, the level of what they should win by is tricky because the Eagles are a really good team, right? And the Chiefs can play really well, and this should just be a close game. They have to pull out at the end, but I fully expect them to win if they simply do play the game that they played all year to be the number one offense. And if the defense is B+, this is a Chiefs win.
Another unit I want to talk about is the Eagles' rush defense. Now they were number one in the pass this year with averaging 179 yards passing a game. Allowing defensively. rush defense wise, they were 17th in the league, allowing 120 something yards a game, 122 yards a game. And if you're Andy, man, and you're Bieniemy, you have to look at that. You know Mahomes is hobbled. You know that he's going to be very ginger on that ankle going to the game next week. But you gotta, and Tristan, I've been saying this for like the better part of 10 weeks now. You gotta feature Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco is a guy who runs big. He's like 5'10", 215, but he runs like he's 6'2", 230. And he's a guy that can really create explosive plays. Finally, after like a month, I saw them finally throw the ball to Pacheco a few times in the Bengals game. And I don't know that was Andy trying to just hold that poker card to the playoffs, but he's a guy that's explosive. He's a 4.35 guy. So he's explosive, he's physical. And I mean, and you saw in a couple plays last Sunday against the Bengals, like he caught a swing pass that should have been a 3-yard loss. He turned to a 15-yard gain. They threw an early tunnel screen to Pacheco in the first quarter. So he's a guy that can get on the wings, on the edge, and create havoc. But 12 carries is not enough. Like, he needs to be around 20 carries. And not even 20 carries, 20 touches. Like, him and McKinnon need to be around, 20, 25 touches to really take off pressure off Mahomes, because there were two drives in two series of Chief game last Sunday that pissed me off. The right before halftime, Jane Watson got an interception. And mind you, Kansas City was getting the ball the next half as well, and they went 3 and out. Not one time did they run the ball. And if you just and yes, I get it. They averaged 2.8 yards carry in that game, but the threat to run, it gives those linebackers a second, like, oh shit, I got to come up and play the run. That half a millisecond or half a second opens up passing lanes for later on in the game, such as play action. And Mahomes, when they do it, he's a great play action quarterback. But in order for that play action to work, you got to give the ball to Pacheco. So he's my dark horse, man. As far as a secret performer in this game to be the difference between win and loss, because we know Mahomes is going to bring his A game. We know Chris Jones is going to bring his A game, but it's the other guys, the lower unheralded guys. I think it's going to be a big part in this Super Bowl. Tristan, what are your thoughts on Pacheco, man? And like, who are your low key unheralded key guys of the game next Sunday?
So key guys from this game, I'm gonna go backwards. Pacheco was definitely on that list. Like you, we've been calling like, hey, about get closer to the end of the season, like we should start seeing a lot more Pacheco carries. That didn't really happen. Playoffs, like, hey, it's time for Pacheco to eat. Like, so we still haven't seen a just consistent, like, we're gonna feed Pacheco and just let him eat. And to a degree, I get it. Like you said, he runs really hard. Like, I got bad news, guys. Like, Pacheco is not. He's not going to enjoy I don't think he's going to have a 15-year career the way he runs. Like, without making some adjustments to his running style. But for what he does, like, I think I'm hoping at least that Bieniemy and Andy Reid were saving him for, like, later rounds, later in the season. Because he gives out a beating, but that also means he's taking a beating as well. Some other people who are really, really, really important. My guy, my Gay linebacker. Forgot his name, first name. Please tell me. Willie, my boy Willie Gay. Him and AJ Brown, best friends. I think he's going to be really big in this game, right? Just making reads off RPO. Making sure he's staying in lanes, being able to drop in coverage as well. If he has about 7 to 8, plus tackles, then I think that's a win for the Chiefs defense. Orlando Brown Jr., come on down. Orlando Brown Jr., at least in our group chat, has been much maligned. It just seems,
at the very least.
Yeah, it seems like every time I'm looking at, just when I focus in on Orlando Brown Jr., somebody's going right past. And it seems like that. The numbers say that Orlando Brown Jr. has actually been really good this season, right? So maybe it could be, confirmation bias because we complained a lot about him last year too. So, but again, statistically, he's been good. Eye test is kind of hit or miss. And then lastly, collectively, it's those rookie corners, right? I'm not really worried about, Mahomes. I'm not worried about the Chiefs offense outside of like some figures on the O-line. But if those cornerbacks hold up and, Willie Gay and that linebacking core just can stay smart and stay disciplined, it should be a win.
And who are your key guys, man, to perform in the Super Bowl coming up on either side?
Well, for the Chiefs, I think it's the edge. I think like Frank Clark and I would say Karlaftis, Karlaftis, but like I saw a lot of last game Karlaftis early, and there was a lot of Dunlap. So are those guys, gonna be able to hold the edge on like you said on that RPO stuff? Like, or are you gonna get so wrapped up in rushing the passer that you're gonna let this dude run around you and not set the edge and hold the edge like you should, and let your linebackers make plays? So I think Frank Clark, if he has a good game, it bodes very well for the Chiefs. I would say the secondary. I don't think if Jalen Hurts is able to throw the ball downfield, it's kind of curtains for the secondary with Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. They're just too talented out there. So I think the offensive line, like you said, Orlando, with Reddick and some of that pass rush, and even the guys they brought in late, Dominican Sue and stuff up the middle. How's that offensive line gonna hold up against that defensive line? Those are the guys I think. I think this game is kind of gonna be one in the trenches. I mean, you can't say the secondary, McDuffie, some of the guys on the outside, like can they get stops, but can they make plays? If Jalen Hurts is not 100% throwing the ball downfield and he tries, and there's some ducks or some off-target throws, can you be opportunistic and make plays on those? I think it's going to be kind of key, especially just like the safety play for the Chiefs. But for the Eagles, it's the defensive line. It's Reddick. It's some of the other guys. Can they get pressure on Mahomes? Can they overrun, kind of like 2 years ago with Tampa Bay? What they were able to do against Kansas City's offensive line. Like, can you just pin your ears back, be dogs, and just feast? If they can do that, they got a chance. They got a legit chance. Because like I said, Jalen Hurts shoulder. Like that's one of the, like you're the iffy. It's your shoulder. Are you ready to go? If not, it's gonna be tough. But I think it's gonna be up to that defensive line and some of those young guys to get pressure on Mahomes. So those are kind of the areas in which I think are the turning points.
Jalen's gonna have to throw the ball in this game. He can't have a 13 for 24 for 130. That's not gonna be. If he has that, that means that they didn't win. They got blown out. He's gonna have to put the ball in the air at least 30 attempts because Pat has shown, and I'm glad you brought up the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They lost Mitchell Schwartz for like 8 weeks. He never came back. Our right tackle, our left tackle, Eric Fisher, got hurt on the last play of the AFC Championship game against the Bills. So both your bookend tackles are gone. And they didn't have Trey Smith. They didn't have Joe Tooney back then. They had Creed Humphrey. Creed and Trey Smith are pros now. They're in the second year in the NFL. So the old line is miles better than it was 2 years ago. So that makes me rest at night. Even with Orlando Brown and his inconsistencies at tackle with fast pass rushers, he's still leagues wide better than Mitchell Schwartz was. But for the Eagles side, for me, Goddard and AJ Brown are going to be just physical differences in this game. If Justin Reed's going to be paired with Goddard, that could be a weakness for the Chiefs. Goddard's 6'4", 6'5", and he's like 250. So he's going to bring a physical presence downfield. So if those RPOs are clicking and you have Goddard wide open down the seam, he's going to be a matchup nightmare for the Chiefs. So the Chiefs D lines we're going to have to be a presence, and they're going to have to blitz in this game. They cannot sit there and bring 4 and hope that AJ Brown and Goddard and Mr. Heisman himself out there on the outside don't do anything. You have to bring pressure. And I'm sure Spike knows going to bring corner blitzes, nickel blitzes, linebacker blitzes. But AJ Brown, man, his physicality scares me, and he's perfect in the RPO game because when linebackers are biting and you have that wide open passing lane to a 6'2", 235-pound receiver downfield, he's a matchup nightmare to bring down, and he's a yak yardage king. So I think that's the main difference for the Eagles is offensively, if they can get those slant patterns, those drag routes to AJ Brown, those seam throws to Goddard, it could be a long day. So I do agree with you, Anthony. The trenches will tell the story because it's going to decipher whether or not Pat and Jalen have time throughout this game. I have a did you know fact, man, for one Mr. Frank Clark. Frank Clark is third all time sack in the playoffs in sacks. He's tied with he's a sack behind Bruce Smith and 3 sacks behind Willie McGinnis. And with Frank, man, he's another guy that's been much more line for us the last couple of years. And in the last couple of postseasons, man, I mean, regular seasons, he hasn't showed up. He's been consistent, legal trouble, performance enhancing issues. But for some reason, man, the postseason, man, he just playoff Frank just lights up. He turns on and he turns up. And I think on the outside, man, those guys, Karlaftis, Frank, Dana, those ends are going to do it only as great as a job as Chris Jones allows them to do. So if Chris Jones commands double teams like he has against the Jags and the Bengals, then I know for a fact Frank and Karlaftis and Dana, those guys are going to eat. Because when you get 2 guys, a guard and center matchup on you, that's 1-on-1 for everybody else. You got to win 1-on-1 matchups, So if they do that, then they have a good shot. Who are your Super Bowl MVPs, man? Sorry, Anthony.
I mean, it's Mahomes. If they win, it's gonna be because Mahomes went for 340 and 4 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns. Like he's gonna play out of his mind. You could say a guy like Pacheco, except Andy Reid doesn't do running backs. You go all the way back to his time with the Eagles. He doesn't do running backs. There was, Kareem Hunt, and then that was pretty much the gist of him as far as I can feature a running back. Like he's not going to do it. So unless Pacheco gets big plays, a big run, a screen pass to go for 40 or something like that, I don't see it. Of course, Travis Kelce, because, he's Travis Kelce. And so, if Mahomes throws for 4 touchdowns, 3 of them can easily beat a Kelce. So those are the 2 guys. I mean, like you said, Frank Clark does. When it's playoff time, Frank Clark shows up. I think, though, in this game, because of the RPO, he's going to have to play so much more disciplined as far as just rushing the passer. I think it kind of negates his ability to dominate this game on the defensive end. If the Eagles win, it's going to be Jalen Hurts. Like, because he's going to have to play not out of his mind, but he's going to have to give them close to 300 yards and at least 2 touchdowns in the air, and then still do what he does on the ground. So I think Jalen Hurts could be it, but defensively, I mean, the reason I was talking about the trenches is, like you said, that the Chiefs' offensive line is light years better than it was 2 years ago. But if Mahomes is hobbled, that kind of, offsets how much better they are if he can't escape and extend plays. So I think that defensive line, Hassan Reddick, is a guy who could, potentially have a big game. Mahomes doesn't throw a lot of picks, so guys like Slay and James Bradbury, I don't see them having that kind of impact defensively. So I think it'll be, like a Jalen Hurts, maybe a dark horse Devontae Smith, because if he's able to throw the ball downfield, Devontae's speed, I think as great as he is, they'll focus on AJ Brown. They'll focus on Dallas Goedert, and if he gets one-on-ones on the outside and he's able to throw it down the field, I can see him having 3 catches for 140. Like he's that kind of elite speed talent to where he can make plays of that sort. So I think, and they'll have to make plays like that in order to beat the Chiefs. So those are kind of my guys who potentially could win the Super Bowl MVP.
So I got lists on both sides. So starting with the Chiefs side, number one obviously is Mahomes. Fully expect him to take his second Super Bowl MVP. I expect him even with him and Howard. I just expect a better game than his first Super Bowl. Against the 49ers. Went back and watched that, and he was so impatient in so many different ways. Like it's really evident. Like you could see the impatience. It's kind of throwing the ball all over the field in ways that he just doesn't do. Like last year was such a big lesson for him in like learning to be both boring and exciting, like just when need be, but also interchangeably. So Mahomes is number one on that. Obviously, 2 is Kelsey. I could see a game like he had against the Jaguars, earlier where like I think that was the Jaguars, but like 4 touchdowns. They could be 4 touchdowns all in close range. Like he could have like 80 yards before touchdowns or something like that. And third, I have Frank Clark. He could, if that defense plays really well, it's going to be because either he or Chris Jones is getting amazing pressure, disrupting that RPO game, making Jalen Hurts stay in the pocket and then destroying him in that pocket. In my dark horse, Juan Thornhill. Juan Thornhill. I could see a world where Hurts throws 2 interceptions, and they go to Thornhill. I could see Sneed's probably gonna be still banged up from last week, maybe still in concussion protocol. So I could see Juan Thornhill as a dark horse. Like if I was betting, like that would be like let me throw a quick $40 on this and see if it sticks. On the Eagles side, number one for me is Miles Sanders. Like we talk about Jalen Hurts in the RPO, but a big beneficiary of the RPO is oftentimes Miles Sanders, or Boston. So I could definitely see Miles Sanders. I have him number 1 on my Eagles board for Super Bowl MVP. 2, I have Devontae Smith. He shows up in big games. Like, we saw that from college. We've seen that in the playoffs. Like he just shows up. And again, if the Eagles win, it's going to be not necessarily because Jalen Hurts, went off for like 350 or 400 yards. He can get 180, but a lot of that could be made up of, yards after the catch. And Devontae Smith's great at that. So is AJ Brown, but I'm kind of splitting the difference on those 2. 3 is Hassan Reddick. I could see he's a game changer, and I could see this. Like I think first 2 rounds were like real big coming out parties for him nationally, but I could see him in a world where he just has a monster game where he just disrupts everything. It just stays disciplined, keeps Mahomes from scrambling out and making plays, and just destroying whoever's in front of him, right? And kind of disrupting the timing of the Chiefs offense. My dark horse for the Eagles, I had somebody, I just completely forgot him. I'll say AJ Brown is a dark. No, Jalen Hurts. That was my dark horse. Jalen Hurts is my dark horse. No disrespect to Jalen Hurts, but I think there are with his injury and just the way the team is built. I think there's a bigger chance for like other guys to have a bigger game That's not to say he can't make the plays to help win, but I'm just looking holistically at the whole game. Who could have the biggest impact? I have him as fourth on that list as a dark horse.
Gotcha. Thanks. So for my Super Bowl MVP, on the Chiefs side, I got Pat, because I think if Pat balls out and does what Pat does, and I think they win this game. Second on my dark horse for MVP, I don't think it's ever been given to a D lineman, but if it was to be given to one, it's Chris Jones. No D lineman has been hotter, or no interior lineman has been hotter in the postseason than Chris Jones. A guy that, who's probably gonna finish second in DPOI for the year, for the season, and a guy who's had 50.5 sacks for interior lineman. He's a guy that gets moved around a lot, and I can see them trying to exploit matchups with him. And then for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, and then second, I'll probably say AJ Brown. If they get loose in the passing game, and because Jalen has missed AJ Brown for 2 straight weeks in the postseason on some deep passes, so that tells me plays are there to be made for AJ Brown. And with our rookie corners, man, if that O-line, which is the Eagles has the best O-line in football, based on the stats this season, if that O-line gives Jalen time and he connects, I think AJ Brown could be a problem. Deep, over the middle, intermediate, short. So we shall see. Let's talk about Super Bowl predictions, man. Tristan, who is your Super Bowl winner? What's going to be the score?
All right, so I have Chiefs 38, Eagles 27. I think Mahomes goes for, I'm gonna say 280, 3 touchdowns. Yeah, and he takes on Super Bowl MVP. Yeah, I'm trying to think. What any other prediction? Score, MVP. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. 38-27.
27. And what's yours?
I got Kansas City 34-24. My Super Bowl MVP is going to be Patrick Mahomes. I don't know what he'll do, but I got them 34-24. Pulling out late, like pulling away late.
Pulling away late. Okay. I got Chiefs 35-27 over the Eagles. I think Chiefs pull off late in the middle of the fourth quarter. I think they send the door shut. And I think the defense makes a big play to shut it down for the game. I have Pat my MVP, going for 310 and 3 tuggies and no turnovers in this game. So that's my prediction. Before we take off today, man, I want to touch on a big NBA trade that happened today. And I caught both of you guys in frustration. The Dallas Mavericks, it's obvious they need help for Luka. This team has been sputtering for the most part of this season. Haven't really been any like heavy playoff contenders or championship contenders. So Nico Harrison and Q made a splash today. They brought in Kyrie Irving. It's a awards report from a couple hours ago. Kyrie Irving and is it Marcus Morris? I always get the Morris brothers mixed up. One of the
Marcus is with the Clippers.
Marquise.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Markieff, Kyrie, in exchange for Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, and 2027 first round pick and 2029 second round picks. Fuck. Tristan, what is your thoughts on this trade?
I mean, I'm currently texting multiple people asking me how this is going to work, like as we speak. So my first thoughts. So wife and I, son, we were leaving Townsend. We just did some light shopping, school clothes and stuff. Heading back home, got the message on my phone. First thoughts was like, I wasn't surprised because we're dealing with 2 desperate entities, right? The Mavericks are desperate to put together a one, a championship contending team that builds on what they did last year. And two, they're desperate to get a second star, right? And it's emphasis on second star because everybody we've seen, every potential trade we've seen around the Mavs has been for a guard, all-star guard, basically, who can, catch and shoot, but could also do a lot of work off the dribble, right? We've seen Zach LaVine. We've seen just multiple people, right? And obviously Kyrie has been on there since he's made his trade demand. But Bill Simmons, I remember a podcast he did in December. I posted in the group chat earlier, but he made this exact prediction like in December. He's like, what about Kyrie? My first thoughts are that, as I told you earlier when you called, I think the Mavericks are just as good today as they were yesterday. Right? Meaning by the ceiling is the same. I had this team pegged as like a first round exit. Anyway, I still see them as a first round exit. I think they got worse in certain ways, and they got better in particular ways that won't necessarily change their ceiling. So let me explain that a little bit. Defensively, they got way worse. Way worse for different reasons. One, Kyrie Irving obviously is a worse defender than Dorian Finney-Smith. Kyrie Irving is a worse defender than Spencer Dinwiddie. Can Kyrie Irving defend in certain moments on ball? Absolutely. Kyrie Irving is one of the worst off-ball defenders at the point guard position that I've seen for somebody that good who plays a lot of minutes. He falls asleep on like second and third rotations. He loses shooters off ball. He can be, he definitely is a ball watcher, right? If you can work the ball like 15, 16 seconds into an offensive possession, Kyrie Irving is going to lose. He's going to lose track of what's happening, right? Same thing with James Harden. They're both two good on-ball defenders when they're focused and they're motivated. But the second that ball starts moving, they lose focus, right? The Nets were better without Kyrie Irving, even with Kevin Durant hurt, right? It got slightly better those last few games before he got traded, but holistically, this season and just in general, since Kevin Durant has came back from that Achilles injury, the Brooklyn Nets were worse with Kyrie Irving on the floor than they were with just Kevin Durant on the floor and everybody else, right? Kyrie Irving is really good offensively in getting Kyrie Irving's offense going. Kyrie Irving becomes less good once the ball leaves his hands. And once he becomes responsible for like everybody else, getting into a rhythm, he's good in a way that really mostly only serves Kyrie Irving, and it doesn't necessarily make your team great. Like nobody else is going to benefit greatly from Kyrie Irving doing his thing, right? Points are going to be scored, right? You may win some games because points are going to be scored, but is Seth Curry getting the ball, where he needs to get it? You know what I'm saying? Is he getting enough touches in rhythm to where he can be effective late in games? Is Royce O'Neal, is he getting the ball consistently in those same factions? So I think the Mavericks got better in the sense of they have somebody else who can get their own offense and is not relying completely on Luka Doncic to create offense for them. They lose even more so on the chemistry level offensively. I can see like they're already first in isolation percentage, right? So they're going to remain first in isolation percentage, and they're going to probably increase the gap between them and second and third. Brooklyn's in third. I think Brooklyn's going to decrease dramatically in isolation percentage, but Brooklyn's defense is going to continue to get even better than they had already been getting. Before KD got hurt, of course, Dallas I think is going to plummet defensively to like the bottom 10th in the league. Sorry. Apologies.
You know what's funny with this? It's in our group chat 2 days ago, bro. I was like, I'm gonna be a Golden State fan because I feel like I know what's gonna happen, and I don't want it to happen. And the homies in the group chat can tell you, man. I low key foreshadowed this. I said if Kyrie's coming to Dallas, I'm fucking done. I'm done because I saw because I read articles about the relationship that Nico Harrison had. He worked at Nike. he was part of that Kyrie campaign with his new shoe and they have a good, close relationship. And I was like, you know what, man? I don't think Nico's that desperate. I think Nico's going to go after a better fit. Like I wanted Zach LVII. We have been tied to Zach LVII for about a year now before he signed that big contract last season. I just thought Zach LVII was a better fit. He's 6'7", he's 26. He's a walking bucket. He's a guy that, he brings size and a guy that's a matchup nightmare. And he's younger. Like Kyrie just turned 30. He's 7 years older than Kyrie. I mean, he's 7 years older than Luka. And their timelines are off. And like, let's say this works out. Let's say they make the West Conference Finals. They play well, right? This is me just being like just very optimistic. He goes into the summer. He's going to win a 4-year deal. Dallas is not offering a 4-year deal. He'll be eligible for a 2-year extension. But even at that, let's say he denies that. Let's say he goes to LA. You gave up your best perimeter defender. You gave up a first-round pick in 2027 and picks in 2029 for a guy that's a 4-month rental. That's the problem I have. Like, and then on top of that, Kyrie is so non-committed to basketball. He's the greatest non-committed player I've ever seen in my life. And he can pop up to Dallas headquarters on Monday and say, you know what, man, I'm gonna go do this protest thing, man, in Memphis, or I'm gonna do this protest thing in New York. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Like you don't know when he's gonna take a sabbatical. It's so hard to gauge his commitments to being a basketball player and being a winning basketball player. Every team he's left, they were better. They were better. Like he left Boston, they became a finals contender. You know what I'm saying? They left Cleveland. Cleveland put building blocks for the future to have the team that they have now. He's leaving New Jersey, and on paper, if you look at, Brooklyn, if you look on Brooklyn on paper, they can roll out Simmons, they can roll out Dinwiddie, Dorian, Durant,
Royce O'Neal.
They're a better team. The Nets clearly won this trade, and it's kind of like if you're a team that's looking to make a move, desperate teams really scare me because when you're desperate, sometimes you talk yourself into making deals that don't make sense. And this deal does not make sense because I can see it now, man. I can see a game in April, game 2 of the first round, playing Sacramento, playing the Clippers, and Luka's 16 of 30 from the field. He's balling. He has 44. He's hot. And then, the ball stopper comes in. Kyrie comes in, takes 3 straight shots and misses it. You don't think that's not going to carry for a few games, even in the regular season. Let's say they don't mesh well. I can see a 4 or 5 game stretch where these guys ain't not even talking to each other. This man's 30 years old, man. He's one of the most passive aggressive guys in the league. Like his best friend as far as NBA ranks is Kevin Durant. Twice in a 10-month span, he's the man that trades from a team in an ideal that these 3 guys had, and Harden, Kyrie, and Durant, to commit to this team. And Tristan, even you and I said this 2 years ago. We gave this shit 2 years, and in 2 years. So it's kind of like I don't know what to make of this. And then on top of this, you're unless you're gonna make another trade, your rotation's wrecked. Like if you have Kyrie and Luka in your backcourt, who's your 3? Is it Josh Green? Is he ready? I don't know. He's inconsistent. Is it AJ Lawson? He's 22. He's a G League veteran. He's been out of college for 3 years now. Frank Ntilikina can't shoot for shit. He's 6'4". Theo Pinson is a pine rider. He never plays.
Hey.
I'm sorry. National champion, North Carolina great. Theo Pinson is a pine rider. He don't play. You know what I'm saying? Jaden Hardy's 20. He's 6'3". Where are you getting your wing defenders at to compete in the playoffs? You have no wing depth, no viable wing depth. Bullock can't find his damn shot, which is affecting the rest of his game this far this season. Max Kleber he's a 4. Like, and then to make matters worse, you still have Christian Wood. So Christian Wood, Kyrie, and Luka are 3 of your worst defenders, and yet are 3 of your best players. Make that make sense. How's that going to work in the playoffs? Okay, I've done my rant. Anthony, go.
The trade don't make sense. It don't make sense because let me before I get on Kyrie, let me start with Luka. Luka has yet to learn how to play off ball. It's his biggest weakness in his game. He does not know how to play off the ball. He's amazing with the ball in his hands, but he's always got the ball in his hand. It's the reason I always say it's the reason him and Kristaps didn't work. You took a 20-point a game score, 22-point a game score, and you put him in the corner and said, be ready to shoot when Luka passes you the ball. That's how. So he's not going to give up the ball, which means when Kyrie does get there, Kyrie going to have to steal the ball. Like, he's Kyrie learned how to play off the ball because he had to when LeBron got there. So he had to learn how to play off the ball a little bit. But he's not an off-ball player. That's not his game. His game is which is what everybody loves. Up, back and forth, 18,000 dribbles, and then create your own shot. Luke, you think Luka's gonna stand in the corner and watch him do that? Like it to me it's kind of reminiscent of when LeBron and Wade first got together and they didn't know how to play together. And one person would go, and then the next person had to go, and then the next person went, and they just stood there and watched each other play. They didn't know how to play off each other. It's like that, except I don't see them learning how to play off each other. Like, I think, Jason Kidd is gonna have to manufacture ways to play off each other. Are you gonna run pick and roll with Luka being the screen setter? Wow, like what are you gonna do? I don't see how that's going to work with two ball dominant guys, especially the way Luka he has to have a ball in his hand. Now I'm shifting to Kyrie. I'm a fan of Kyrie's talent. I'm not a fan of his game. If that makes any sense. He's uber talented. His game sucks. He's not a winner. He doesn't win anywhere he goes outside of when he won with LeBron, who wins wherever he goes. He may not win in abundance where you feel like, oh, he should have 12 championships, blah, blah, blah. Everywhere he's gone, he's won. And when Kyrie left, he still went back to the finals with nobodies. So he then went to Boston. He got hurt. A bunch of young up-and-comers, they went to the conference finals and came within one game of going to the finals. They bring Kyrie in, and they lose in a lesser round. You put him with James Harden and Kevin Durant. What have we seen? Nothing. So where is he this winner? He's not. He hasn't shown that he's a winner as being the leader of a team or one of your main guys. I don't count the LeBron thing. I've seen LeBron take everybody to the final. So that doesn't count. So like, my thing now is, okay, you got Kyrie, your defense plummets now. Who are you going to be able to keep in front of you on the perimeter? Luka's not a defender. Kyrie's now not a defender. Tim Hardaway can defend, but Tim Hardaway hasn't been what he has been in the previous seasons. But you took your best perimeter defensive player and you traded him. So now you got two guys who are both going to start. Where's your bench points going to come from? And this is the thing that doesn't make sense to me. If you were going to do this, why you just didn't pay Jalen Brunson?
Oh man, that's where I was going.
I watched Jalen Brunson put up almost 40 on the Clippers last night. Why didn't you just keep Jalen Brunson at a much lower price point?
You could have had Brunson for 4 years, $60 million,
and kept Dinwiddie. This is
what kept Dinwiddie, and you had a guy who learned how to play with Luka. He didn't have to adjust to playing with Luka because he came up playing with Luka. So his whole game was around, I know how to play with him on the court. I know how to play when he goes off the court. So it's like defense.
Now he plays defense. He tries. He's a Villanova cat. They play all Villanova cats play defense.
So is that like a realization that, oh, we messed up? Let's try to overcompensate by bringing in Kyrie. And it's like, now you also got to bring Kyrie and Kyrie's attitude and Kyrie's personality into your locker room. How does that work when you're trying to get guys to buy in with a guy that don't buy in? Like a guy that's never been all in. How do you then convince the rest of your players to be all in when the guy that's getting most of your salary cap and getting the biggest checks and is going to get super? That's what you also got to understand about superstars. They're going to get treated like superstars. That's the way it works. You don't treat superstar players like you treat the rest of the roster. That's just the way it works. So when you treating a superstar a certain way and he's also not all in, he gets to do whatever he wants and you're rewarding him for doing whatever he wants. How does that resonate through the rest of your locker room? So I just don't. And even then, on a talent standpoint, as an overall team, I don't think it moves the needle. Like, there's enough shots to go around. To me, there's not enough time on the shot clock to go around with all the dribbling that's going to happen, because you got two guys that dribble the air out the ball. So, I mean, how do you really? I think you're going to have to play, Kyrie mass minutes when Luka's off the court. Like, to me, you got to play them in crucial minutes.
Like stagger the lineup? Like stagger both those players?
You're going to have to stagger them except in crucial minutes. Closing games, starting a half. Other than that, like closing a half. Other than that, you got to stagger the minutes. You're trying to win. I get, that's been a big issue, is trying to win the non-Luka minutes when he's off the court. How badly, they dip when he's not on the court.
Second worst? I think Golden State's worst. What's second worst? No, what worst? Yeah. Golden State's after us. And not like non-Steph, non-Luka minutes.
So yeah, you hope like, okay, that's gonna do it, but there's no telling if it will. Like, I just don't see, when you put them on the court at the same time, I think you're just gonna see it's already enough standing around watching Luka do what Luka does. So now Kyrie gonna stand over there, and then when it switches and Kyrie bring the ball up, now everybody else move out the way, and you got to watch Kyrie and have Luka sitting there staring at Kyrie and what he does. And unless Luka learns how to play off ball, I'm just not. I would have dodged that if I was them.
I think it's two people that need to like really answer after this. Well, three technically. One, Mark Cuban. Like I said earlier, like an investigation needs to be made on like how poorly he's run this franchise since that championship in 2011. Again, you have Jalen Brunson. You let Jalen Brunson go, and you realize, I need a secondary ball handler because you have Spencer Dinwiddie, but we need a better secondary ball handler, who can also make for others. So to get that person who you believe is Kyrie Irving, you have to give up your secondary ball handler and your best defender. Like that's just poor asset management, poor roster management. And then Jason Kidd. We can talk about how, and I've talked extensively about Luka, needing to be able to play off ball to accommodate other stars that they want on this team. But Jason Kidd needs to design an offense that is a little bit more democratic and equitable in like its usage. Because if they're just gonna be cool with Luka pounding the ball, for 15 seconds, 17 seconds in a possession, then it doesn't matter how well he is off the ball. Like if there's not a system that they can rely on that you can integrate Kyrie Irving into, and that's where I see the biggest problems is right now the system is Luka, right? And Kyrie is a big shock to that system. One, because he's so good, and two, because he also is not a equitable, teammate, at least on the floor. So this trade, again, reeks of desperation from all parties involved. The Nets, desperate to get off Kyrie, the Mavs to get that second star. But ultimately, I don't think this raises the ceiling for the Mavericks. I think it slightly raises the ceiling for the Nets. But that's a different conversation on what they're giving up. And so that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, my hope that they're not done with the trade deadline. I hope they get some 3-and-D guys to go along. You can't go into after the post All-Star break with this roster. It's just not gonna. You're not gonna win anything. You're a first round. As far as I see, you're a first round exit team. And Tristan, you are wrong. They do have a system. Is get the ball to Luka, get the MVP this year system. That's what it was for the first
As it will.
2 months of the season. Was like get Luka 35 minutes. Let him get as many shots up as possible.
As it will.
And Tristan, man, thank you so much, man, for today, bro. For more watchers episodes of now we're versatile as fuck now we cover sports, movies, TV shows. Shit, man. Look, y'all want to cover something, man? Follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Watchers Basement. You have any like, subscribe, roll to 500 now. It's on and charging. We're also on Google Podcasts. We're on Apple. So please, man, like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends, homies, mama, daddies, whoever. Again, man, I'm Franklin. This is for Anthony and Tristan, man. We are the Watchers in the Basement. Peace.